Hi, my name is Maya Galvan, and today I'm going to be speaking about the overuse of electronics in children and how that can result in inactivity and other health complications later on in life. My target audience is going to be primarily parents or guardians of children under the age of 18 that are still living in the home. And I'd like to start off with a little poll for my imaginary audience here. So, how many of you grew up with a personal cell phone? What about a computer? How many of you had a television in the home? How many of you regularly played video games? And how many of you primarily played outside as children? So I'm going to go out on a limb here and make an assumption that you probably said yes to the last question and no to at least a few of the others. And we're really seeing the shift here in more recent generations where children are exhibiting more of a sedentary lifestyle than those of their parents when they were growing up. And that can be a big issue because health outcomes have actually been found to be really rooted in this foundation that is made in preschool aged children. So, between the ages of 3 to 5, the consistency of physical activity that you're exhibiting is really going to have an effect on your health for the rest of your life. And in studies with adults who watch a lot of television, it has been found that that is also associated with increased energy intake. So people who are watching a lot of television are also consuming really unhealthy snacks, fast foods, soft drinks, and they're eating fewer fruits and vegetables. So if you can assume that you might see the same sort of effect in adolescent children between the ages of 10 to 19, that can be a big issue because these kids are going through such a period of such rapid growth and development in their bodies that there's an increased need for certain nutrients in the diet to sustain that growth. And so inadequate intake due to that excessive electronic use can lead to long-term health implications such as coronary artery disease or metabolic disorders. So when we're looking at the overuse of electronics, it really can come down to two different aspects. So you can look at both content and context. So when actually schools are beginning to bring technology into the classroom a lot, and technology can really be used in a positive, beneficial way that increases learning. I actually have a friend who developed an application for kids that's focused on helping increase mindfulness, helping kids focus, and helping them sleep better. And like I said, schools are bringing technology into the classroom as a learning tool. So the U.S. Department of Education has actually said that bringing that in helps expand course offerings, experiences, and learning materials. It's helping those kids build these skills that they're going to use in the 21st century workforce. It's also increasing engagement and motivation. It's helping these students accelerate learning, and it's allowing them to have access to these resources 24/7, so they don't have to have a teacher in front of them to be learning, which is actually really cool. But that means that these kids are doing this during the day and then they're coming straight home and they're also engaging in activities that are screen based. But these aren't going to be academic uses. They're going to be more so watching videos, watching television, engaging in internet and computer use, and playing video games. And a study at an Australian university found that children who were preschool aged, again between the ages of 3 to 5, actually averaged 112.5 minutes per day of time in front of a screen. And that actually only increased with each by 9 minutes with each additional year of age. So the 4-year-olds were exhibiting an additional 9 minutes per day of screen time compared to the 3-year-olds, and so forth. So with this excessive use of electronics, we're also seeing a decrease in physical activity levels of these kids. So the same study at an Australian university found that those preschool-aged children spent 127 minutes per day being physically active, which is only 16% of their time every day. And that actually only decreased with age as well. They were spending 12% less time being physically active with each additional year of age. And then the Australian recommendations nationally for physical activity is actually 3 or more hours per day. Only 5.1% of children in this study actually achieved that recommendation. And then 21.8% met the screen time recommendation of an hour or less per day. And then only 0.8% met both of those recommendations. That's a really, really small percentage. I think that's really unfortunate. So in addition to the excessive electronic use having an effect on physical activity levels in kids, it's also been found to have an effect on dietary habits. So a study at a Brazilian university with adolescent children between the ages of 10 to 19 found that 6.2% of adolescent Brazilian boys and 12.8% of those adolescent Brazilian girls met the American Association for Pediatric screen time recommendation, which is 2 or fewer hours per day. So that's a little bit more leeway than the Australian recommendation. And then specifically in those adolescent girls, those who surpassed the recommendation by double, so they were watching 4 or more hours per day of screen time, that was associated with a lower intake of vegetables and a higher intake of sweets and soft drinks. So you really can see that correlation between the two. And then specifically to dive deeper into some of those nutrients, in a Portuguese study with 13-year-olds, those who didn't meet the American Association for Pediatric recommendations, those exhibited a total intake of more fat, saturated fat, polyunsaturated fat, and cholesterol. They are also consuming less fiber, vitamin C, magnesium, and potassium. And then females specifically consumed less protein, complex carbohydrates, vitamin A, folate, calcium, iron, and phosphorus. So it really is having an effect on their diet. So what you can take away from this as a parent is just to be active with your kids. Foster this really positive sense, this positive relationship between physical activity and family. Get outside. You can teach your kids that they don't have to just go to the gym and run on the treadmill and have this grueling workout to get active. They can go outside, walk the dog, go to the park. If they're not into team sports, they can do a karate class. They can do all of these sort of things, but do them together. Make it some family time and just create this positive energy around physical activity. So I just wanted to give credit to the sources that I used. So my first study was published in Medicine and Science and Sports and Exercise, and that was Preschoolers, Physical Activity, Screen Time, and Compliance with Recommendations. My second study was published in the Nutrition Journal, the effect of television viewing on food and nutrient intake among adolescents. And then the third was higher screen time is associated with overweight, poor dietary habits, and physical activity in Brazilian adolescents, mainly among girls. And that was published in the European Journal of Sports Science. Thank you so much for listening.